Halo is a franchise that possesses an almost unnatural amount of respect from what seems like every single corner of the video gaming world. From devs to players, people admire the legacy that was forged by the first 3 installments, and it has good reason. Now, as corny as that intro sounds, there's really no other way for me to word exactly what I'm talking about. This is a game that came out of the woodworks in 2001 and continued to perfect a formula up until the 3rd installment without really changing much of the core game. From the innovative health system introduced in the first, Halo CE, the campaigns, the weapon sandbox and armor, and even more importantly, the multiplayer, which provided a foundation for one of the first successful FPS esports that later games would draw inspiration from as well. MLG in the competitive scene of Halo was pretty much solidified by Halo 2, with one of the key reasons being a complete overhaul in map design philosophy, amongst other things. Halo 2 shipped with a much larger, competitively viable map pool, with a greater emphasis on weapon location, spawns, and having a lot less maps with stupid jank like teleporters, man. Just a side note, guys, I fucking hate teleporters. However, there was one map in particular that possessed all of those attributes and then some, quickly becoming not just one of the best maps in Halo 2, but one of the most fan-adored FPS maps in gaming history. If you haven't figured it out and you're not watching the background gameplay, I'm going to tell you the story of Halo's Lockout. So before I get too deep into talking about every single iteration of Lockout, I kind of want to give a preface to this series, so you guys kind of have an idea of where this idea came from. I have dabbled a lot in video game design. I'm not saying that I am a video game developer by any means. It was something that I had interest in whenever I was still in college. I no longer really have interest in it. It's the work of the devil. Trust me, it's not something that I want to torture myself with. Serious topics and history lessons are not something that I'm completely foreign to. It's just a newer concept for this channel. Obviously, most of my videos are just kind of me shitting around or just a live stream recap or something just kind of funny. Kirby on crack. But it's not something that I'm completely foreign to doing. I happily embrace this. I think it'll be a really fun new take on my content. And I have plenty of ideas brewing for different maps already. Now, if you guys want me to cover something that's maybe not a map in Halo, or if you want me to cover a different game or a gun, or maybe you just don't even want me to talk about FPSs in general, shoot some ideas my way. I am open to just about anything. I just need to put in the proper amount of time so that I can give you guys actual well-written thoughts. But other than that, I really hope you guys enjoy this new take on my content, and I hope I teach you something new about Lockout. The research put into the Lockout project has taught me a lot more about this map than I ever even realized would be possible. For instance, Lockout in its entirety, in its original form, was actually not Lockout at all. It was actually a Halo CE map titled The Cage. The Cage was actually cut in the alpha of the game, likely due to time restraints of Halo CE. In a podcast-style interview with IGN, Max Hoberman, who is one of the leading map designers for many of Halo's iconic maps, including Lockout, states that a lot of Halo 1 was a last-minute throwing together of ideas, and of course he's talking about the multiplayer, as Halo CE was actually originally designed to just have a campaign, and the multiplayer was just kind of thrown together. You can definitely tell how rushed Halo CE is just by playing around on the maps for a small amount of time. I mean, there are power weapons seemingly on top of each other in very dense areas. I mean, on Battle Creek you have a rocket launcher, active camo, and overshield all in the same area in the creek, with the rocket being up high, of course. Now, of course, I have nothing concrete to support what I'm about to say, but it's honestly interesting to think what this map would have felt like on CE. Maybe this map was originally supposed to be the answer to the maps feeling a lot more chaotic on that game, with this map feeling a lot more spread out and spacious than most of the CE maps do, as a lot of those maps have a problem with congestion and being boxed in, and of course, density of power-ups and weapons. This map is a lot more spread out. But we can only really speculate as, well, I've never really played The Cage on Halo CE before. What I'm about to say is more of a game problem than it is a map problem, but the movement around this map and the interesting routes that you can take is really stifled whenever you realize that you can mostly move around the map via sprinting or jetpacking to get to interesting spots, or for shortcuts, or for any sort of jump spot. Anything that you can think of, any sort of creativeness is lost there, and it's one of those things that made a lot of early Halo games feel very unique. I'm not saying that a lot of these crazy jump spots are necessarily practical in some of these games. However, it's still very cool whenever that one guy that you know gets on top of the middle of Guardian and shoots on a spot that you've just never seen before in your life. It's cool, and then it's a whole learning process of how to get up there. In Halo Reach, if you see a place, just go there with your jetpack. Who cares? But this isn't a Halo Reach hate video, at least not yet, so to avoid it becoming a Halo Reach hate video, let's talk about the greatest map in the entirety of Halo, possibly ever.
But we don't have to innovate in every single place, so the multiplayer itself, there is a solid foundation in Halo 1 for multiplayer game design. Let's build on that foundation.
Yeah. Sometimes making things as complicated as possible can end up hurting you in the end. It's best to keep things simple, especially if those things work. That's the point that Max Haberman is trying to drive home here. Build upon a foundation provided by Halo CE, and just improve upon its weak points. One of those weak points, of course, was maps. And the maps were arguably a lot more complicated in Halo CE than they were for Halo 2. I threw this together really quickly just to show you how the areas on the map are kind of set up. On the left side is all of the top parts of the map, and the right is the bottom. So on the red part of the map, that is where the sniper spawns. The green is court, where bottom court has the sword. The three yellows are BR, where the top layer has the BR actually spawning. Pink is lift, and that has the shotgun hallway attached to it. And cyan is mid, with top mid basically being a no man's land. If you go there, you're basically dead. And that's how it feels for all of these types of maps, whether it be Lockout, Guardian, or even Haven in Halo 4. Once you walk through mid, you are fighting somebody. However, it serves as a connection to the entirety of the map. You can get from mid to basically everywhere. And that's all it takes to make a perfect map. I mean, there's nothing super complicated about this map. Only one lift on the entire map, no teleporters, 3 power weapons that aren't all in the exact same area within 5 feet of each other, and walkways that just kind of connect to each other and don't lead to dead ends, so you don't feel so congested and boxed in. It's simplicity at its finest. Another thing to note whenever you talk about maps is how well they play with certain game modes. Max Haberman states that every single Halo map was designed to play very well with at least 2 game modes in mind. And I would say that amongst the 4 competitive game modes, being Slayer, Oddball, Capture the Flag, and King of the Hill, that Lockout plays perfectly on pretty much all 4. Maybe not perfectly on Capture the Flag, but the other 3 definitely. The points of interest make King of the Hill a blast. The actual nature of the map itself being the best 1v1 map in the entire game makes Slayer just a no-brainer. I wouldn't say that Capture the Flag plays poorly on Lockout, I would just say it's probably one of the more difficult maps to play Capture the Flag on. And finally, as somebody who's not a fan of Oddball, I'd argue to say that Lockout actually plays very well and probably the best on Oddball out of all those game modes. The way that the map is interconnected and intertwined and the different routes that you can play, as well as your knowledge of the map, really comes into how well you can keep the ball away from people. You're able to really get creative with the routes you can run while being the ball holder. Speaking of routes and jumps, this is kind of like something I threw together to kind of show how you can get around the map in an unorthodox manner, kind of confuse people. It's not anything that's particularly useful all the time. You don't want to just throw these weird jumps all the time, especially if you're just going to get shot and killed before you can make it. But this is mostly just to show you what is possible if you actually sink an awful lot of time into Halo. The Halo 2 Anniversary and Halo 3 versions of the map, named Blackout and Lockdown, oddly enough, didn't really see too dramatic of changes. In fact, you'd see more dramatic changes on the Halo 3 side of things, and I can kind of understand why. It's a completely different game. Whereas Halo 2 is it's a remaster of Halo 2, so why would you change anything? The only thing in Halo 2 is that they added these like ice pillars above the sniper and BR in the center of the map. You can shoot them down and kill people, but they also added a cool little hole on the top of lift where you can just kind of nosy your way on down to elbow from lift, which, you know, I kind of enjoy that. Halo 3 is where they took their liberties in changing a bunch of stuff. Like, there's no window opening in court anymore. It is now just closed off by unbreakable glass. The shotgun tunnel is extremely large. Inside of all of the buildings, you can kind of stand up on top of the computer panels and just kind of camp up there. The little pathway above sniper that you can kind of walk around the platform on is like every single door jump in the entire map is pretty much impossible to do without grenades. And every single drop down, like the one next to sword, actually has like a little platform you can stand on. So you can actually do some really interesting things when it comes to like jumping from sword above you with a grenade or something like that, but I don't really like advocating for grenade jumps anyways. Other than that, it still plays very similarly to Lockout, and you know, that's something that I hope the devs would have strived for, because you don't want to ruin a map that's just so fucking perfect. I'm hoping that as we get closer to Halo Infinite, we'll kind of see some more eyes on some of the maps, because I'm really hoping for some simple maps, stuff that just kind of makes sense. You don't really need to overwhelm the player. Stuff like Lockout is completely acceptable. And honestly, it'd be really cool to see them make an actual official release of Lockout in Halo Infinite as well. I know that Max Haberman at Certain Affinity, that's his company, is actually going to be helping the devs over at 343 with something. He hasn't exactly said what he's going to be helping them with. Be interesting to see exactly how that turns out, but I don't know, I'm kind of excited for that game in general, and that's kind of what kind of got me on this Halo kick as of late. I wasn't really a huge fan of Halo 4 or 5s, but for some reason I just have this distinct feeling that this game could actually be something that is very, very fun to play. Again, that comes from nothing really, because I don't really know too much about Halo Infinite's release yet. They haven't really told us too much. They haven't really told us anything super in depth. But I appreciate you guys kind of sticking around for this different style video. I know this is really serious. It's just like a video essay kind of thing. But every once in a while, I kind of like to teach people some things about FPSs if I can, or just any game that I've played a lot in my life. And Halo, I have kind of the time and the experience on the game. So, you know, maybe this is going to be a fun series. Maybe I can do some more videos on some other maps from some other games. Maybe some Call of Duty ones. Maybe do one on like... Maybe you want to see another Halo one, or maybe you just never want to see this series at all. Let me know in the comments. Just let me know how you think. Let me know how I did, and give me some suggestions for the next map or video game little FPS thing that I can cover, or a little weird video game history thing I can cover. But anyways, guys, that's enough for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully the next upload you guys see on this channel will be the Halo 2 Lasso finale. I will see you guys in the next one.